What value is there to the plot of Mass Effect Andromeda, or to the game as a whole? I can say almost nothing. It's not hilariously bad for one to replay and make jokes about, as you would watching a B movie again and again, nor does the good outweigh the long, bug ridden experience to warrant a second playthrough, or a first playthrough. It's just a bad to boring experience in general. Some may say the gameplay is good, and you can argue the single player shooting and jetting around looks like fun. The gun controls are tighter, the gun mods are much more diverse, and acquiring various resources for said gun mods is a fun grind. However, it's a squad game, and you can't customize your squad's gear, which limits everything to you. Your squad is also limited to their class and abilities, which means only you are customizable. And if the story isn't any good, it doesn't really matter how fun the gameplay is, you simply won't be interested in playing an RPG. And this is perhaps the biggest problem with Andromeda. They have one innovative idea and screw up the execution of what that innovation is supposed to be. We can look at this from even within the story, or the ideas and premises of the game as a whole. The game premise. Now, the good premise is to escape the galaxy backed by the elusive man because the Reapers are coming. The execution problem is they didn't bother to finish building the space station. They have lore-breaking and lore-reinventing explanations, they have poor advertising and bad trailers, and don't explain why one couldn't just explore some other part of the Milky Way. The simple fix is simply to do proper setup to explain the reason why one is going to another galaxy, and not the rest of the Milky Way. Don't let it be about a sense of adventure and redemption that will take 600 years. Tell the audience up front about the main conflict, the Reapers, and give each species their own agreed upon reason to come. The Quarians, the Krogans, they already got their own reason, so this should be fairly simple, but it has to be front and center. Also, what about that human dominance philosophy? Why not give that some credence? Give the people and their species some diversity, some culture, some philosophies, and hopefully some depth instead of faceless, meaningless cutouts. Number 2, exploration and discovery. Good premise. Have a game that focuses on exploration and discovery, harking back to the first Mass Effect. The execution problem is it's a big, boring series of maps with pointless side quests and resource gathering, which amounts to not much. You drive around in a car instead of flying around in a spaceship, despite there being many opportunities to use or acquire a shuttle, and with many scenarios in the story being solved with shuttles or flying vehicles. The wannabe Normandy has no weapons, and neither does your car, which means the first game is simply more fun than this, just because there's guns on the Mako. Thus, everything confrontational must involve violence with handheld guns. This limits the believability of the world, the scope of gameplay, and the story cutscenes. So the entire idea of exploring a hostile galaxy becomes some sort of strange dream where you're ill-equipped to do so, despite being in a world of flying machines and people who can levitate. And the simple fix is just put guns on your ship and your car. Put gear that you can put on yourself on your squad mates. And then you upgrade those things. That's it. Number 3, believable characters. The good premise is you create characters who fit the mindset of adventure-seeking extremists or those seeking redemption to go on this mission. Fine. The execution problem is you don't kill off the main character and most of the other guys during the voyage under asinine reasons and bring other characters along for the ride for whatever illogical reasons and then hide digital memory blocks of your dead father that somehow made it to planets you or anyone else has ever explored to before for story and tidbit premise reveals that have no impact on anything and are relatively poor attempts at fan service. When you have established lore and you're writing a side story, you don't really need fan service. You just use the lore. The simple fix for this is just use believable characters. Get them who can understand why they're here and reinforce and explain that the premise is not a joke. Constantly do that. If it's a mystery premise, then you have to constantly reinforce why it was such a big deal. Then you have to explain their actual role makes sense and is then adhered to, and then stick to that through the entire story. Even better, make it a main conflict. Instead of having Cora just fall on her sword because, Pathfinder protocols, whatever those are. It would have been neat to have a brother-sister combo, each with unique talents and skills that you want to, if you want like a more tighter character in a story, and for gameplay as well too, give them an arc. that's what you do in stories. That would be nice. It can't be that hard to write arcs these days. I don't know why it's not working in games. Remember those scenes where Scott shows him struggling? That's good, in theory. In execution, it's horrible because we don't know what he's going through, what pain he's experiencing, and what Sam actually did to him, and now that Sam is gone, how he's able to still manipulate the remnant tech. You don't strip a character of their prized possession with next to no consequences. Oh, he now gets a bloody nose, darn. Oh, he's screaming when he's doing something on the console we can't quite understand. And if we're using lore and continuity, why didn't we have Edie along as opposed to Sam? This was supposedly an elusive man-funded operation, so why not at least have some continuity with an established character that makes sense? Remember how annoying this character was? They can't hold a candle to these dudes. That's how bad the characters are here. Number 4, new aliens. Good idea. Create a series of new alien species in a new galaxy. Makes sense, right? Bad execution. Create only 2, one of which is the enemy, and then a later reveal shows they're actually the same, and then we discover that one alien species is fabricated. So in reality, there are no new aliens. Also neglect the lesser alien species from the Milky Way because, who cares about lore continuity in a sequel or playing a new Mass Effect game with the same universe? Where are the Andromeda versions of the Elcor, the Hanar, the Volus, the Vorcha, the Yogg, etc.? Also completely neglect the entire spacefaring species called the Quarians, where this entire mission and way of life would have been, it's just absolutely perfect. Like living in a long extended periods on a spacefaring vessel to find a new homeworld. Whoa. Yeah, where have I heard that one before? The simple fix is just as obvious. Just have a centric story about the Quarians. The premise and its explanation would have worked just so simply. Combine that with the genetics of whatever the Krogan were doing in their sleep, and you could have had an almost no alien races in this story, and the Quarians being the only new one, as you reveal them having healed their immune system over the hundreds of years, and they're out of their suits, some aren't out of their suits because it's cultural, and you get this whole shift in storytelling about lore to how they come from suits to survival and to health and, really attractive alien people apparently. You throw in some Alpha Centauri philosophy, and you've got this interesting Stargate universe Alpha Centauri premise with mysterious sexy aliens who all think differently and are in conflict with each other. I think everyone would love to know what happens to the Quarian culture and what its people are like as it evolves. And what about the Rachni? They were just neglected and forgotten. There was a perfectly old, alien and strange telepathic species that could have gotten more screen time in a sequel that we never heard of again. And all because of this. One bad decision turned into an entire bad game. I can go on about gameplay and the juvenile dialogue and diction that needs a complete overhaul, the bad choices or lack thereof, and the lack of consequences from said choices, the protagonist, the antagonist, what the heck they were trying to do. But suffice to say, this is a series of broken ideas and their executions from the premise to the ending, and should be the lesson on how not to make a space exploration third-person shooter RPG. Anyone who says this is worthwhile or who says there's great characters and great scenes clearly doesn't have any understanding of what came before and what is possible today. The only shadow of former game Andromeda is in name only, and maybe in production value. We can only hope Casey Hudson 2.0 knows what he's doing, or BioWare simply and truthfully goes back to its roots. Come on, yeah! Hey guys, thanks for watching all the way to the end of the series. Thanks for listening and waiting all this time. I appreciate your attention, your feedback, and as always, leave a comment on what you like and what you didn't, and what you'd like to see next. Special thanks, of course, goes to xLetalis for his full non-commentary video playthroughs, upon which none of this would have been possible. So until the next video, stay tuned and be good.
Damn it, I'm hit! Steve! I'm alright!
You sure?
But I won't be picking you up. I gotta land this bird quick.
Get safe.